Hmm. Interesting. My last sentence there was cut off. I wonder how that happened. Well, what it would have said was that I went to the Delana Center to have my eligibility and permission for services there reestablished, which would include services for housing in the shelter there, services to eat lunch and dinner there every day as a homeless resident of Washtenaw County, and also for the services of cleaning my clothes and showering. But even though the year trespass legally has been lifted or expired, they are presenting red tape for me by further implementing an administrative trespass contingent upon me filing a document of appeal explaining my defense of the circumstances in which they decided to trespass me in the first place by recommendation of the Ann Arbor Police Department. Via their unsubstantiated accusation that I was in possession of a stolen iPad, which I bought from someone that I knew for $50. And Ann Arbor Police subsequently set me up. They set up a person to pretend like they were the owner of the device. I contacted that person because their name was saved in the device to inquire about their name being in the device and to inquire about having them turn the device over to me in my name as the primary user, iCloud user. And that person never admitted that the device was stolen. They just vaguely conveyed to me that it belonged to their son, and they'd like it back. And so when I made them aware that I had purchased it, and that if it has in fact been stolen, and if they reported it stolen, then they can have it back for free. But if it's a device that they sold to someone and then I bought it subsequently and then they want it back, then they're welcome to pay me the $50 that I paid for it. I gave them a choice. And once again, even after giving them the choice, they never admitted that the device was stolen. And 2 weeks passed, and then all of a sudden I get a message that they're willing to pay me a reward for $100 or of $100 to give them the device back. So I agreed to it and had them meet me at the Delana Center where I stay because I had nothing to hide and I wasn't under the impression that I had a device that was stolen. And this person showed up and I let them into the vestibule. The door closed, so we were locked in the vestibule. I presented the iPad, and then a female police officer arrived at the door of the vestibule, and then this male person opened the door for the police officer to come into the vestibule. And then the police officer immediately took the iPad, handed it to this person, this male person, and then put me in handcuffs. And then subsequently allowed this person to leave with the iPad. And then they took me to the police station for questioning. And then they released me in less than an hour. And since then, they have never pressed charges against me. They questioned me about who I bought the device from, and when I told them that I had no intention of speaking to them about the matter, they threatened to keep my only cell phone, my only means of communication, as evidence. So, being forced with that circumstance, I came forth to them about who I bought the device from. And then they gave me my cell phone back and released me and told me that it was Officer McGuire specifically who told me that don't worry, we're not going to get your friend in trouble, the one you bought the device from. We're not going to tell him that you told on him or anything like that. I thought that was strange that he said that, but nonetheless, I was able to get back to the shelter, even though it was after midnight that night. That would have been July 7th, I believe. And then what do you know? The next day, at lunchtime, John Shippers, who is Jewish, obviously you could tell by that name, but also I guess he's a co-director of the shelter. He meets me in the main lobby downstairs, tells me that that I'm being kicked out of the shelter, that I have to leave. I have to get all my belongings and leave. I could stay for lunch, but then I had to remove all my belongings from the property, and I would no longer be able to receive services from the center. So I protested the matter and asked him why. He said because you were involved in a theft, according to the Ann Arbor police. And I told him no, that's not true. And he said, well, you'll have to file an appeal for that, but in the meantime, you have to get all your stuff and leave. And of course, I'm in a shelter, so I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go, and I even have stuff in storage there, so I couldn't have carried it all. So I called the police to have them come and enforce the law, which is I was a resident there, so they would have to technically evict me. And legally, to have me leave. But the police sided with them and issued me a trespass and wrote on the trespass I was involved in a theft. And I was kicked out on my ass. And I had 2 bags of stuff and my bike, my violin, and then some of the stuff I had to leave there, which they probably disposed of. And then soon after that, a few months after that, I got kicked out of the place that I was staying at after that. Again, I was staying with a Jewish lady. Her name was Adina Rottenstein. And she's a professor at the Eastern Michigan University. Psychology of all things. She was into poly group sex and relationships, and she hosted this activity in the home that we shared with one other roommate, and she made advances and invitations towards me to participate in that, and then when I told her that, well, my opinion about that kind of behavior promotes sexual disease epidemics, she got very upset with me and took offense to me and everything I said afterwards, and eventually used the law loophole to have me evicted as a trespasser, because technically her lease with the owner of the house didn't allow her to sublet a room out of the house. And she pretended not to know that in order to have me evicted. And then one day I went to the doctor's office and I came back and all my stuff was on the lawn except for my violin. And I called the Washington County Sheriff. The sheriff came out, knocked on the door, and this other roommate with long hair that lived there told John, told the sheriff that the violin was out there when the attorney, Joseph Lloyd of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and a Washington County Sheriff bailiff put it all out there about 2 hours previous. So the only suspects for taking the instrument would be attorney Joseph Lloyd of Ann Arbor and the Washington County Sheriff bailiff. It was a very valuable violin worth $20,000 French, turn of the 20th century. Took me my whole life up to that point to afford that instrument, and I haven't been able to replace it since. And then that was the beginning of my tumultuous circumstances with Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I'll go through this paperwork here. But that's what all of that should have said at the end of that unfinished last sentence. This is the trespass notice that I was given just a few days ago at St. Andrew's Church, because I discovered and realized that a significant amount of stones that building is made out of are radioactive and emitting radiation, and they have devices to that effect that are monitoring the radiation, but nonetheless, there's no warning or signs to the public that use the building, especially the poor, underprivileged, underrepresented, hungry, homeless that has to walk underneath this structure to eat every morning at the food parish attached to the main part of this church. So, church and politics are friends, at least. And then this is a request for body cam footage and vehicle footage and police reports of a number of incidents leading up to the trespass incident from St. Andrew's Church. And these are the symptoms and circumstances that I've had to brave while being homeless from being unlawfully evicted pursuant to court administration error at the 15th District Court of Ann Arbor, Michigan, with the aid and support and, well, how would one say, misconduct of the Chief Judge Burke signing such a eviction writ without noticing that the application did not indicate any answer as to whether a payment had been made towards the judgment that he excessively awarded in such prejudiced fashion for his Jewish brethren, the plaintiff and lesser. List of my medications. The doctor who saw me for that incident. This is another incident in which I almost froze to death. But since then, I've been able to get a sleeping bag from Community Mental Health, along with some ionized plastic spoons and some ionized peanut butter, some ionized boxes of apple juice, some lactose chicken salad, some unsalted crackers, and some granola bars. Those are what I can eat, and some fruit cups. That's what I can eat. From the resident doctor there. Hypothermia. That means cold. Very cold. And then this is just another police report that is somewhat related. It just shows a history of my circumstances here in Ann Arbor. So not only have I had to brave the elements, but I've had to brave trucks. Hitting me as well. Riding my bike. Deliberate or by accident, you be the judge. This is them releasing my property. And crash report. least the motorist got a ticket. I guess I'm a little slow moving and bringing a suit since I'm homeless. No money. By design. Trust me, not by choice. And then this is St. Andrew's structure in part. And then these are pictures that I took of poisons and excessive radiations emitting from the building. This mulch here, as you see, is adjacent to that toxic fungus. And then this just shows hackers with stealth effect deleting my photos ongoing until I was able to realize what was happening and make haste to upload them onto social sites. So that's the extent to which they successfully deleted these photos. But you can see here these two photos together. In the middle, that's the toxic fungi. Down here in the left corner picture, that's some of it as well. It's just more smooth and elongated. So as you can imagine, I'm making waves in Ann Arbor. But it's for the betterment of the city. Not that I'm necessarily doing it because I want the betterment of the city, but truth is always for the betterment. So here, my lens captured some of the radiation energy being emitted with this blue halo here. You're probably wondering how is that possible, or how can you do that? You have to study the dynamics of cameras and lenses and all that yourself. It's very, very extensive, and the more of it you read, the more your eyes become trained to understand what it is you're looking at in a photo. There are probably an unlimited amount of dynamics and dimensions in the photo. And our eyes are generally just looking for the subject that we intended to capture, but with advanced reading and practice, you'll learn to see far more than just what you intend to see in a photo. So here in these photos, see here, okay, so in the left-hand corner, and then work your way diagonally towards the middle. The left-hand upper corner, and then work your way diagonally towards the middle. You'll see all that purple. Those purple background figures. And they extend all the way really to the other side of the photo. Now, see the orange icon on the far right, in the middle of the, which would be positioned in the middle of the photo, but it's on the far right. Now go diagonally down. And into the blue photo. Sharp. If it's in angles, I would say that is a what? 45-degree angle? Something like that. You'll see a dot surrounded by lightness. A light circle. Now, up here where the leaves are on the trees, work your way down, directly down the photo, and you'll see squiggly images. You'll also notice how on the side of the photo, where the leaves are of the trees, there's more purple tone, contrasting the cerulean color, or sea green color. Now, whether that's, one might argue with you, oh, that's probably because the sun was in the west at that point, and the church was to the east. Well, that would still yet be a confirmation of the camera detecting radiation. But as you know from your experience in taking pictures in sunlight, that sunlight doesn't make those little squiggly shapes of energy. Here again, we start where the leaves are. We have purple again, but now they're different shapes. And here again, purple are different shapes. But this picture is distinctive. Go all the way, okay, so start with the leaves and go directly down to the bricks of the church, all the way down at the bottom of the left-hand corner. Look at those dots, those sea green dots emitting from the building. So here we have a photo that confirms radiation emitting from the trees that are near this building, because this building is planted in the ground just like the trees. And then we have the source of this radiation, which are the stones emitting radiation from the building. I think this is a good picture to stop at.